We are in our 16th week and we are still in Montana, and today I will be spotlighting the Florence Three. In November 2001, 3 women were brutally murdered in broad daylight in a salon on a busy highway in Florence, Montana. The killer walked out the front door, vanishing and leaving a lasting mystery that has scarred the small town for over 2 decades. Cindy Paulus, 71, was a devoted grandmother, avid horseback rider, and Lady Grizz basketball fan. Cindy was at the Hair Gallery Salon on Highway 93 on November 6, 2001 to get her nails done by the manicurist Brenda Hatch, 44, whose children say there's not a day that goes by that they don't miss her. Brenda had changed her nail appointment last minute that morning, so the family wasn't even aware that she was at the salon when the news broke that there had been a triple homicide at the local hair salon. What investigators were able to piece together is this person came into the salon where Cindy was there getting her nails done by Brenda. The salon owner, Dorothy, was not there at the time, and the killer forced Cindy and Brenda into a storage room where he slit both women's necks. As the killer was fleeing out the front door, Dorothy, 62, the matriarch of a large family, the woman who made friends with everyone she came in contact with, would come face to face with the killer, who decided at that moment to slit her throat and leave her lying on the floor in front of the salon. When a customer was arriving at the parking lot for her appointment, she noticed a strangely dressed man wearing a trench coat and a fedora hat exiting the front door of the salon. The front door of the salon wasn't typically used by customers, so this drew her attention. The woman entered the salon to find Dorothy on the floor in a pool of blood in the fetal position. She immediately contacted the local police, who upon arrival would discover Cindy and Brenda's bodies with fatal wounds lying in the storage room. Investigators at the crime scene, to include Ravalli County Sheriff's Office, said that the crime scene was one of the most ferocious they had seen in their entire careers. Investigators struggled with the motive from the very beginning. Who was the target? All 3 women? Just Cindy and Brenda? Brenda and Dorothy? Did Dorothy just get caught in the crosshairs? Why would somebody brutally murder all 3 of these women in a small town? And how could the killer be connected to all 3? As the family planned funerals and grieved losses, the community felt the weight of their security shatter, and they tried to come to terms with what just happened. Investigators worked to answer the looming questions and piece together what led to such a violent crime. Investigators noted that nothing was really missing from the hair salon except for a few styling caps that they couldn't account for. There was no sexual assault detected on any of the victims, and the man in the coat and the hat was never located or witnessed beyond the scene. In fact, law enforcement could offer very little information to the public and couldn't point to a motive, a suspect, and that led to speculation and rumors throughout the community, and they all seemed to be floating around the fact that these 3 murders came back to drugs. In 2005, 4 years later, the Ravalli County Sheriff's Office would announce that they had a suspect, Brian Moulter Weber, who was in his mid-20s and was a small-town drug dealer who resided in Nampa, Idaho at the time the murders were committed. Investigators were able to confirm that Brian was in Missoula at the time the murders occurred and made a trip to Florence with his girlfriend around the same time. There's another suspect named Lincoln Bendavis, 33, who's on investigators' radar. Lincoln is believed to have been the head of a drug distribution ring that operated between Idaho and Montana in 1999 through 2000. Lincoln is said to have known Brian, and Brian was known to be an enforcer for the drug ring at the time when debts were not paid and messages needed to be sent. In 2008, investigators were positive they had their suspects, and they filed multiple charges against Brian and Lincoln, accusing Lincoln of ordering a hit and Brian for carrying it out. Investigators at the time believed that one of the victims was tied to somebody that owed money, and that the murders all had to do with an unpaid drug debt. They had at least enough probable cause that they were able to charge them with crimes to include criminal enterprising, racketeering, conspiracy, murder, and kidnapping. Ultimately, the prosecution was unable to convince the jury that these 2 were guilty of the triple murders, and all charges for both men were ultimately dismissed. However, both Brian and Lincoln are still the main suspects, and they currently remain in federal prison. Lincoln is set to be released in 2030 after a 25-year sentence for distributing drugs in western Montana. Brian is supposed to be released in July 2029 from 2 separate drug convictions. Neither of these current charges, for which they are both serving time, have anything to do with the Florence Three. After the charges were dropped for both suspects in the Florence Three case, Judge Malloy sealed the records for the case with no explanation, leading to gossip and rumor to swirl and speculate in this already mysterious case. There has been no public activity in their case, and the community has returned to normal life with this mysterious case always looming in the background. Please continue to share Cindy, Brenda, and Dorothy's faces and their case in hopes that we can help generate some leads. Thank you so much for taking the time to get to know Cindy, Dorothy, and Brenda today. And don't forget, when you see those missing and murdered posts on social media, hit like and share, because every time we share a face, we do get closer to solving a case. And I will see you all back here tomorrow for another day in Montana.